You're watching Cricket World TV. Time for another World Cup hotspot with me, John Pennington, in England, and Chetan Narula, who's made his way over to Melbourne. Hello, Chetan.
Hello, John, and welcome to our viewers once again from Melbourne, where the World Cup is in full flow.
It certainly is. We've got quite a lot to review. We'll get straight on with it. But Chetan, last time we spoke, you were in Canberra, looking ahead to the Afghanistan-Bangladesh game. We were both cautiously optimistic, maybe, that Afghanistan might spring a surprise, but in the end, it wasn't to be.
Well, not really, John. I mean, Afghanistan's inexperience showed through at a time when Shakib al Hasan and Mushfiqur Rahim were batting. They had Bangladesh in a bit of a trouble, four down for 119 odd. But then after that, when those two quality batsmen, I mean the best quality batsmen in the Bangladesh side, he came at the crease, started hitting some runs, shots started flowing freely. So after that, Afghanistan did not really know what hit them. And once that happened, their inexperience showed. In those last few overs, Bangladesh were able to add quite a bit runs. And then, obviously, those first 3 wickets fell very cheaply, and Afghanistan could not recover from that. But despite all of that, a great start for Afghanistan in the first ever ODI World Cup game, and I think they did pretty well. Repeated that when they faced Sri Lanka this past week.
They did indeed, and I thought it was quite interesting that I think the coaching staff almost also, well, they weren't quite prepared as well as they might have been for that Bangladesh game, but they certainly prepared very well for the Sri Lanka game. And I think if it takes the Mahela Javadena century to beat you, I think that's a measure that you really have arrived on the international scene. What do you reckon?
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. And I think perhaps the dismissal of the tournament with the way Kumar Sangakkara was bowled, and after a very impressive dismissal, a not so impressive cartwheel from Ahmed Hassan there. I mean, Afghanistan were brilliant against Sri Lanka, as brilliant as they were against Bangladesh. I mean, you tend to sometimes figure that maybe a team like Afghanistan, who could not push on and get a result against a team like Bangladesh, they might just fall apart. But Afghanistan don't do that. It's a pity that they haven't played more cricket over the years. I'm not sure how much more international cricket they will play after the World Cup, but the way they prepare, the way they move from one match to another, they are, just brilliant tryers. They don't give up. Very, very impressive. And I would really want them to continue in the same way. And if they do that, the way they try, the way they perform, they'll improve very, very quickly. But then, will they get those chances? It's something that's really worrying for international cricket.
Yes, I mean, we also had, that game was quite close, another game very close, feature in the associate. We had a few games between the full members that weren't close at all. You had New Zealand comfortably beating England, and the West Indies bouncing back to absolutely thrash Pakistan, who were 1 for 4 at one point. What did you make of those two games, if you saw much at all?
Which was the first game you mentioned, John? New Zealand-England?
Yeah, New Zealand-England.
Well, yes, yeah. I remember you said that England will get an absolute pasting. So yeah, that was an absolute pasting, wasn't it? England were nowhere, completely trashed, completely beaten, completely outdone. You just add so many adjectives for that particular match. I think it was a statement of intent from New Zealand, particularly the way they, after the way they beat Scotland. It was not a great total. They lost quite a few wickets. They perhaps did not intend to lose as many wickets. So it was a great signal of intent. 4 slips with the way Tim Southee was bowling, with Trent Boult at the other end. So and then Brendan McCullum just went into overdrive. It was a pity he didn't have more runs to score. New Zealand made a huge statement with that win. They just showed that they are a side that are not co-favorites, perhaps rank favorites now, especially because Australia haven't played for almost 2 weeks. And the next game Australia plays against New Zealand in Auckland. I'll be there for that game, and it's going to be a cracking one. Having said that, what more can I say? New Zealand absolutely destroyed. Absolutely, yeah. I think I should stop. It's just
let's move on
about that. Move on to the West Indies Pakistan game. Yeah. as good as New Zealand were, or as bad as England were, Pakistan matched them. They that was perhaps the most horrific fielding exhibition that I've ever seen in a game of cricket. So, yeah, you can't really get poorer than that. Maybe Pakistan, maybe the only way up for Pakistan is up from here. And I remember they were having some problems with their fielding coach. So you want to say that, okay, the fielding coach, what the fielding coach is doing is wrong, and you have a fight with him. He almost quits, then comes back, and that's the performance you put in. Just doesn't prove a point for the Pakistan fielders, does it? And obviously, then they couldn't find in themselves to bat well either. So a horrendous performance from Pakistan. Many expected that coming on the back of a sixth consecutive loss against India. But what a memorable win for West Indies, because everybody thought they didn't want to be there. They were looking disappointing. They were looking beaten. That sort of a victory can just uplift you, and I think we have seen that from the game against Zimbabwe as well. West Indies are not lost. West Indies have got this group together. They want to perform. They want to show that what the world is thinking about them is wrong, and they are a completely different side from what they were against in that loss against Ireland. Can Pakistan do that? That remains to be an open question.
Certainly is, and obviously after you watched Bangladesh against Afghanistan, their game against Australia was washed out, which is why Australia haven't played for quite a while. I think that New Zealand-Australia game could be absolutely massive in context of the tournament itself. So after that, you obviously still moved on to Melbourne to watch India-South Africa, and we copped a bit of flack on social media, us two, because we both said that this was the first genuine upset of the tournament, didn't we? But what an atmosphere, what a game at Melbourne, certainly from an Indian perspective.
I've never seen an atmosphere like this. I've been to the semi-final in 2011 against Pakistan. I've been to final in Mumbai in 2011 as well. I've never seen an atmosphere like that. The Melbourne Cricket Ground is obviously a notch higher than any other stadium in the world. 100,000 fans, and when 90,000 of them get packed in, and you couldn't really make out any empty seat at the MCG that day. MS Dhoni after the match was, I don't know if he was just pulling South Africa's, like he said, maybe there were 20,000 South African fans. 20,000 South African fans. I couldn't see more than 200, and that's counting the 11 players who were on the field. I couldn't count more than 200 South Africans. It was a sea of blue, and that's putting it mildly. The noise they were making, I think that had a role to play in the way South Africa got beat. Hands up, honest, didn't see that coming. Absolute shocker. A month ago, India were getting stuffed by England in Brisbane and Perth, and now to turn that around, beat Pakistan, which was again a one-off game, like I said, and then to go on and beat South Africa, that was a true test of their preparation for this World Cup. And they did it comprehensively. 130-run victory, Shikhar Dhawan, 100 for him. The way Ajinkya Rahane played, what a knock, what an innings. He looked a number 4 batsman for once. I think he solved a lot of problems for India with that particular knock. He now knows how to bat at number 4. I think that's the best definition of that knock Rahane played. But like I said, a shocker of a win for India, a shocking result, which, perhaps at the start of the tournament we had said India will be lucky to get to the semi-finals. I think this perhaps assures that they will finish top of their group. And once you finish top of the group, you play a lowly team. I'm not going to say England are a lowly team. They might still qualify, but if you have Afghanistan or Bangladesh as number 4 at Melbourne, well, India are sailing through the semis easily. Like I said, they are back in contention. You cannot rule them out after this victory.
No, absolutely agree with everything you said there, Chetan. It was another really comprehensive all-round performance, and we've spoken a bit about Pakistan's field, and well, again, India outfielded South Africa, and that again is unusual. South Africa a little bit sloppy in the field. India were very, very good. And of course, England are now off the mark after those 2 pacey. We managed to turn it on against Scotland. A competent performance. I thought Mo Nally very good at the top of the order. And that's important for them to get off the mark. Did you see much of that? And if so, what did you make of it?
Yeah, I saw a little bit of the Scottish innings. I thought England badly needed that victory. I mean, thanks to the 1 point that Bangladesh had caught in Brisbane without playing a ball against Australia. That's a huge point because if the match had gone ahead, they would have, even for 20 overs, Bangladesh would probably have lost that game. So now they have a point, which is an odd number. Now, whatever they do, their tally will always be odd unless there's another washout, and England also get a point from a washout. So unless that happens, uh, England will always need to overhaul that odd point, and that's easier said than done. It will come down to two games, especially for Bangladesh and England now. Especially the fact that England have beaten Scotland. So it's come down to two matches: that's Scotland versus Bangladesh and England versus Bangladesh. Virtual quarterfinals for Bangladesh, and it's really interesting because Bangladesh have always been given this, you know, they've always been given chances. They're a test nation. They've never taken these chances. And again, here, by fate or chance, they've got this chance now to make the quarterfinals of the World Cup. Can they take it? Can they take it, and can they do it? Can they raise their game against Sri Lanka, against Scotland, against England? These are big matches for them. Can Bangladesh do it? Because if they cannot, then you really need to argue whether these associate nations such as Ireland, Scotland, Afghanistan, UAE, don't they deserve more chances, as many chances as Bangladesh have got? So Bangladesh really have a point to prove here.
They certainly do, Chetan. We mentioned this very briefly earlier on about the West Indies because they were in action earlier on today. Comfortably beating Zimbabwe, 73 runs, I think, on duck with Lewis method in the end. But the big story there, of course, Chris Gayle, 215, the first World Cup double century. He's obviously had a terrible start to the tournament, but he's arrived now, and the West Indies, from looking very poor against Ireland, are now looking very strong.
Yes, I was just looking up a statistic while I was doing my laundry. Um, Chris Gayle has um, Chris Gayle has scored 225 runs in his last 13 ODI innings before this one. So that's, I mean, he's basically outscored himself in the last 12 innings by playing that one knock. Nalan Samuels got a ODI 100 as well, but I don't think many people will remember that. It'll just be a mention on the scorecard because that's what happens when Chris Gayle is in such destructive form. The second 100 of the last 34 balls that he faced, absolutely destructive. The first non-Indian batsman to get a double 100, and obviously, I think when the World Cup started, everybody expected that there will be at least one double 100. You have Rohit Sharma, who's done it twice, A.B. de Villiers, Brendan McCullum, small grounds in New Zealand. So one associate or one poor or a weak bowling attack, I should say, would obviously get a pace thing. It was just a matter of when. It was just a question of who would do it. Chris Gayle was obviously one of the names, but he was not in the best of forms. I think the West Indies Cricket Board's president also retweeted some criticism, and he coped a bit of flack. And that's the thing about this West Indies team. The more you criticize them, remember what happened with Dinesh Ramdin and Sir Vivian Richards. So the more you criticize them, the better they perform. So I think that's what gets them going. Just criticize them, keep on criticizing them, and they will play well. But absolutely a brilliant knock from Chris Gayle. He's back, and West Indies look like they mean business now. Looks like they might just make it to the quarterfinals. They play South Africa next. They have a bit of momentum going with 2 wins out of 2. South Africa have been deflated because they didn't win as easily against Zimbabwe as the West Indies have done. Then they lost against India quite comprehensively. So a must-win game for South Africa, or otherwise we are in for a shocker of a World Cup.
They would be indeed. And next up for you then, Sri Lanka against Bangladesh. You talked about key games for Bangladesh against England. And this is another one for them because I know they've got a pretty poor record against Sri Lanka, but if they can get a result, then again it throws this group wide open again. But what are you expecting?
Well, I'm expecting more from Bangladesh. I think they were impressive against Afghanistan, but that is not enough. a Test nation for so long, an ODI nation for even longer. They're expected to beat Afghanistan as comfortably as they did. Um, Australia match would have been a true test of their character, but sadly that didn't happen, and that's why this match becomes very important because they have to send out a message. They have to send out a message to England, to Scotland, to associate nations, to everyone watching that listen, we have made use of our opportunities and we are here to compete because, like I said before, if Bangladesh do not take this chance, it raises a huge debate as to where cricket is headed, especially the way that we are treating the associate nations, keeping in mind what's happening in the 2019 World Cup.
So, prediction from you then?
Sri Lanka to win, obviously, too good a side to not beat Bangladesh, but if it's a close match, I would be happy.
I think we all would, Chetan. We all want to see competitive contests, whether that's between two full member nations, associates, or whatever. That's what we all want to see. Yeah, I'm going to go with the Sri Lanka win as well. I think they're just slowly getting themselves, into not quite top gear, but third, fourth gear maybe. And I think even if Bangladesh do produce their best, Sri Lanka will still be too strong. So, Chetan, thank you very much for your time today.
Absolute pleasure, John.
And thank you very much for catching up with us here on our latest World Cup hotspot on Cricket World TV. Bye-bye for now.